recording. All right, welcome. I'm Jakob Spjut. I'm a professor of engineering science and technology studies here at QVCC. And I'm going to be talking about flexible classrooms. So doing remote and in-person teaching at the same time, and some of the benefits, challenges around that. Now, is this going to, okay. Here's basically what we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about like what the whole point is, and then I'm going to go into 3 different setups. This one right here, the basic tablet setup, is the one that I recommend that people use and get started on. And I'm trying to make this approachable to people who, obviously if you're into technology, you'll be like, oh, this is cool stuff. But if you're just trying to be like, how do I teach a class and not get overwhelmed by this other stuff, I'm trying to make that approachable. And then I'll work my way up to what I'm doing, which is this full screen projector preview stuff down here. So that's the plan. So first, remote learning. I first started teaching remotely in spring of 2020, as I'm sure many of you also did. And it was under not ideal circumstances. But having done it a bit for the past few years, there are definitely some benefits that go along with it. One, it accommodates varied schedules better. Now, this is true even if like you have the live remote online stuff, because if people have travel or they have to travel for work and go up to Maine, I had a student that had to do that. It was called up to Maine, and now he's out of the state for 2 weeks. In a normal semester, that's almost death, right? In like a normal on-ground course, like how do you even keep up, right? He was able to attend remotely this whole time, right? So it can accommodate that. Your assignments are all in one place. If you're doing an online course or a live remote course, they're all going to be on Blackboard somehow. And it kind of forces you to be technically competent, which is a useful skill in order to succeed in the course. Drawbacks though, well, you have to be technically competent, right? That's a hurdle that you have to overcome. It's harder for people to build relationships sometimes without having the FaceTime and being able to react to that sort of thing. Some people have home environments that are kind of distracting. Mine is one of those. I have 4 kids at home. It can be very difficult to teach courses from home. Trying to take a course and learn while I'm managing all that stuff, like it can be hard. And some people, it makes it easier to participate, but some people it makes it harder because they're kind of behind a screen and they're kind of in a, well, somebody else will answer, they can't see my face type of mode. So here I'm presenting it sort of in contrast to what I was doing before, the in-person stuff. But in person, you could see sort of the same sort of thing, but the opposite, where its benefits, well, there's no technical barrier there, but you can, and you can build up FaceTime and go to campus to study. But then the drawbacks are, well, now I have to travel to campus. And what if I get sick? How do I catch up with this, right? Do I make that decision to stay home and try and not get my classmates sick? Or do I come in sick to power through, which is what most people end up doing? Keeping track of what's due when can be tricky. And yeah, so like you could view it the other way as like, what if this were the default? And people were saying, you know what we should do? Everyone's used to being remote. We should do some stuff on ground. And people would be like, well, this is unusual. I'm not used to this, right? So what I'm trying to do here is keep the best of both things, keep all the things that were good about these, hopefully not the bad parts of them, and not make it like the worst of both worlds. And so in practice, what I've done, I first did this sort of combined in-person and remote in spring of 2021. Yeah, what's up, Brian?
Oh, how do I see this online? I apologize.
Okay, so if you're in the classroom, there should have been an email that's sent out that has the collaborate link. So
okay,
if you
cool.
You can just go, and it's a guest link to this. Right, and so yeah, make sure you mute it if you're in the classroom so we don't get feedback. All right, so in practice what I've done is I have, since spring of 2021 with my, so you got to turn the sound off on that.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay, all right. I have, with my CAD courses, when I first did this, taught a course where I was in the classroom. Some people came in the classroom, some people came remote. And so I've been doing this since then. It's now fall of 2021. I'm doing all my courses like this. So I'm in a classroom. That's good for me because now I don't have to deal with my cold basement or any of that stuff. Students can attend in person, or they can attend remotely. I record every class so that if a student is so sick or has other things that they can't actually make it to the class even remote, it's recorded so they can catch up. That's not ideal, watching through a 90-minute lecture or, you know, while I'm asking students questions and now you can't participate. Like, it's something, but it's not ideal, but it is there. And then every assignment is submitted online. I plan to, even if I have completely on-ground stuff, I'm gonna try and keep a lot of this thing. So whether it's listed as flex, which is what my courses currently are, or whether they're listed as something else, I'm gonna be mostly doing this stuff going forward because I think it's beneficial in a number of ways. So I'm gonna talk about how I got here and then what it is. So at home, this is my setup in my basement. I record music. This is a little bit extra, maybe overkill for some people, but it was working for me, so I was trying to figure out how do I bring that to the classroom here. And so I set up my classroom here similarly with some of the same stuff and tried to make it so that I can talk to people in the class and not feel like I'm stuck behind a screen. I can look at people's faces, but I also can still communicate and interact with remote students. So we're going to talk about the basic tablet. Can you please just either log out or something, like the echo, if you have like hearing my voice back a few seconds later, just
because I got everything shut way down.
Just turn off the phone. It'll. All right, so for all of these setups, I'm using the same sort of hardware, which is a pretty simple setup. I've got a webcam. Here we can show this to you. So I've got a webcam over here. I've got a graphics tablet right here, and I've got a microphone, right? And I think actually did I set this up so I can zoom in here? There you go. So it's not the best resolution, but you can see. Microphone, graphics tablet, webcam. So that's how I'm doing this stuff. And it's going to be the same for all of them. First thing, the graphics tablet. The nice thing about this is if you're used to doing on-ground stuff, you want a whiteboard. You want to be able to write stuff down. I do a lot of engineering stuff, so I need equations, I need that. Even if you're not doing that, you want to be able to list topics. You want to have the flexibility of going where the course takes you sometimes. So I have this graphics tablet. It was like $600. It's not crazy expensive. And it's a 20-inch tablet. And then the simple setup is you duplicate this on the screen here. Let's get myself out of the way there. So I duplicate that on the projector. So whatever's happening on the screen is happening on the projector. Full disclosure, right now I'm doing something different to show this stuff to you, whatever. But like this is the recommendation, just whatever's on the tablet is on the projector. This means when I draw something on one, it draws on the other. And I can show that to you, like I'm drawing here, I can draw, right? Happy face, yay. So that gives me flexibility to do what I need to do with my classes. And then I have another monitor that's separate, and we can, if you want to see, that's this monitor over here, right? So I have another monitor, and on that monitor, I have it's set up as its own display. So these two are duplicated on the right, the tablet and the projector, and then this is its own display. And the reason I do that is so that I can put other stuff on that display that I don't necessarily need the students to see, but I need to see. For example, if I have my PowerPoint going on and I'm doing my equations, whatever, up for everyone to see, I can have Collaborate set up on the other screen, which is what I have currently right now. So if you see me looking over here, that's where currently the other screen is, so I can see what people type. So here, somebody type something. I'll prove to you. I can see it. So somebody in the session, just go ahead and type something into the Collaborate chat window, test message, whatever you want to call it. Typing something, Jess, thank you. Yeah, hello. Hi, Malin. Hi, Brian. Hi, Barbara. So you see I can respond. It's magic, all right. So I can see that while not interrupting what I'm doing over here. I don't have to worry about alt-tabbing or that sort of thing. So people who might feel comfortable raising their hand or typing something, who might not feel comfortable speaking, like I can still see that. If you raise your hand, I've set it up, I've got the audio, I can hear the raise hand ding, so I know to call on people. All right. Yeah, Kudzai. Just demonstrating, yeah. All right. So what I do is in here, in Collaborate, I just share that second screen. If you've used Zoom or whatever, you can share sources. So I just share that whole screen. And what that means is now, after I share the screen, I can verify that what's up there is in Collaborate. I know things are working. I can always look over at my Collaborate to see that, hey, like, yes, they're seeing what I want them to be seeing. And now I'm all set up. So what this means is that anything that I want students to see, I just drag onto the tablet. This is important because I didn't want a lot of cognitive burden from managing my technology. So I start things up at the start of class, and then anything I want people to see, just drag onto the tablet. So for example, Microsoft Whiteboard. So here I'll just start up Microsoft Whiteboard. This is a handy free program that I use for homework reviews, for things like that. It's available through the App Store. We have it as part of our contract. Apologies for my handwriting here. This is just from the last class. So you can see I'm working through some trust problems, and I can just write. And if I can, draw little happy faces if we're happy about how things are going, right? So lovely, right? It's useful. You can zoom out, you can change pens pretty easily. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. You can paste in images. So I'm not going to do a Microsoft Whiteboard tutorial, but I can have green, red, like it's pretty straightforward. So if you haven't looked at this, it's nice. But notice I just dragged it on there. You could see it. If I don't want it there, I can just drag it off the screen or drag it back on the screen, right? Just make it full screen. Bam, you can see it. Want to get rid of it, get rid of it. And that's pretty much anything, right? Like I have one screen, just drag it over to the other screen. Some other examples, YouTube videos. Here, what YouTube video did I choose? You gonna let me do the link, or do I have to? Okay, all right, it's figuring it out. And then, oh, it looks like since we don't have an ad block, we're going to, all right, well, assuming that
face.
All right, no ads. So here you go. This is, here, I'll make this big. So just don't have to stop and reshare my YouTube tab. If I want you to hear this, I can just turn on the
Converted to gasoline power. The mill still houses many of the historic cast iron gears and gears. That shaft has flywheels that increase rotational inertia to maintain smooth rotation. A belt transmits power from the main shaft on the lower level to the saw shaft on the upper level.
So you can see that, like, I, again, didn't have to do any finagling with technology, just open it up. It's there, people are seeing it, and you should be hearing the audio. I mean, not right now, but when I had the audio on, you should have been hearing the audio both in the room and remotely. This is actually a cool thing. This is an animation that one of my students did last spring. This was a remote class. He had to get up to the sawmill to measure all of this stuff. Yeah, you could hear it remotely, right? So he had to get up to the sawmill to measure these things, to make up all these parts, but we collaborated mostly remotely. All of our meetings were over this. I used Whiteboard to draw up diagrams to try and explain how this stuff worked. It was kind of tricky. He made all these animations. I narrated this for the final thing because he didn't really want to do that, but he did all the animations. This was all done remotely using this stuff. So anyway, that's cool things. Computer-aided design. I've got a couple of videos here that I'm going to show real quick. So this one, again, just open it up, put it on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and mute these so that they don't get in the way. But this was a course or a class. I'm going through my PowerPoint, and then I just hop over to SolidWorks. I can demonstrate doing SolidWorks-y type stuff. At some point here, I was like, I think on a break, so I showed the class, whatever. But while people are working on stuff, doing some animations. It's lovely, right? So I did this. A lot of students were in class. We had laptops in class. Some were remote. And I had some students who were remote who didn't even have SolidWorks or the ability to install it on their computer because they had a Chromebook, right? So I let them know ahead of time. They should have been aware of this. Some people are like still going like, so how do I get this working on my Chromebook? I'm like, I told you ahead of time, you can't, right? But what they could do is this was presented, it was recorded. They could go back later. And so I had those students, there were 2 of them, who ended up coming into the college on the time that they could come in and use SolidWorks here. Or other remote students who could actually install it, that works fine, right? But if you don't have the stuff, we have it at the Open Computer Labs. They just came in and did it here. And then they did their little table design, and they uploaded it to, you know, the same place you upload anything through the Blackboard assignments. And then we tested them. And so this next video, that again, these are just videos I went ahead and downloaded to be able to show here. We went ahead and tested them. I think this one right here, which one is it? That one? No, that. Anyway, whatever. One of these, that video, or that table right there. So that table was created by a student who had never been in class at that time. Had only been remote. He made it. He uploaded the thing, and then we could 3D print it out here at the college, place down the table, and then do some testing. And he could see that. And this also made it, because I'm have the camera set up to show this, people in the class could see the testing better. Like, this is better than previous students have ever been able to see this because I have the camera set up projecting to the projector. So the close students could obviously see it themselves, but then like everybody can see this, right? So then he could see that it works. And I think, anyway, so we go and test a whole bunch of tables. Later on, I think I step on some tables to show that, yeah, you way over designed these. You could have made them lighter and still held up to them according to your, you know, some of the factors of safety on these were very large. Anyway, so that engineering specific stuff. But the reason I'm showing this is I didn't want to do, okay, we'll do live and remote together, but now it's all compromised, right, and works. I wanted to do the cool stuff that I'm doing and still be able to do it. So here it's like I'm working through problems, just kind of scanning through this class real fast. You're getting the fast version of this class. Oh, look, doing some cool, like showing off some cool designs and stuff. And then we go over and we do some materials testing. And so obviously, if you're remote, you can't actually run this yourself. But we can see this. I actually had a student managing the camera here so that I didn't have to worry about it. I just set a student on doing that so he would zoom in on the right thing so people could see. And then you put the thing in the jaws, you pull it apart, you measure the force, you get the stress. So I'm doing the same stuff, giving students the same experience as best we can. And it works pretty well. The one thing I've found is that, and there, look, it snapped, or did it snap? Anyway, it's pulling apart. You get the idea. The point is, the one thing I found is that for any of those things, I have to spend a little bit of time thinking about, okay, if I'm gonna do this, how am I going to show this to remote students? But once you do that a few times, it starts getting more natural, and you stop having to spend as long thinking of, wait, how do I get a camera over here, or where do I put the camera? I just have some cameras. So as I've shown a couple times, I've got, oh, wrong one. I've got this camera here on a tripod. And so what I can do, we'll switch to this camera. I can swivel this around and kind of show whatever. So here's the people in the class. And then we'll move it back, and of course it won't be centered now, but whatever. It'll be fine. You look at me. There we go. Yeah. So that's that. So some of this stuff, like the easy camera switching, that's a little more complicated. But like as far as just showing things on the screen, it's fine. And so if you want a whiteboard, like you can just be working in PowerPoint and just list things and be like, okay, point 1. Right? And like students are listing out what they think, and you can just use this as you would use a whiteboard. You can have blank PowerPoint slides, you can go through, and then at the end you can just save all your annotations. I upload that to the Blackboard, and people can have all the notes there. So for PowerPoint stuff, when you prepare things ahead of time, here's an example problem that I worked through. Here, we'll put my face back on screen. here's a problem I worked through with my intro to engineering students, just finding equivalent resistances. And here I prepared my notes ahead of time. So I used this tablet to prepare these notes. I'm not going to walk you through this solution because why do you care, right? But you can see like I had this prepared with the different steps that I could talk about while I'm going through it. So this lets me not have to worry about like as much copying from my set notes. Like if I already have it set up this way, I can just kind of step through it. But the advantage of having an in-person, whether it's live remote or whether it's actually in the room, as opposed to just watching a pre-recorded video, because I could also just pre-record this video, is that you can ask clarifying questions, or I can go down. So for example, somebody's who might be wondering about like, okay, what's this mega mean? Well, I can just hop in here and be like, mega, that's mega, and that's 10 to the 6th, right? So I can hop in and add in stuff. Like I just did that live, that mega stuff, which is why it says mego instead of mega. Mega, there we go, right? And then we can keep going with the solution, right? So it gives you the flexibility, so it's not just like I'm only doing what's on the notes, but you can have the notes there ahead of time. And then frequently I'll just have my notes separately that I then just write into the PowerPoints. But anyway, so there you go. There are, yeah, Kudzai.
Hold on.
All right, so what kind of cameras are they and how am I switching between their perspectives? We're getting to that in just a slide. So so we'll get to that just shortly. So real quick, one thing that's handy for doing this PowerPoint stuff is I got some tablet keys set up. So this tablet has a driver here that you can access this from clicking on the button in the taskbar. And you can set these up. My recommendation is that we just have IT set this up and have nobody ever have to mess with this. So for anybody in IT, I would set this up as like the pen, which is Control P for PowerPoint pen. And notice you can set it up on a per application basis. So if art professors need specific stuff for Adobe Illustrator or whatever, we can have an Adobe Illustrator set of things that all the art faculty know and can switch between brushes or whatever. But for PowerPoint, like have a pen, have an eraser. So I can go pen, draw my things, have an eraser, erase the things. A laser pointer, so I can point out things and people can be like, look over here, right? And then page up and page down, that's for advancing the PowerPoint. I have a couple more mapped, but these are the ones that I would recommend that we have just as a standard. And you can map them equivalently on the right and on the left. It's pretty easy to map these. This should be something that faculty don't have to mess with, that we just set up and have it set this way in the same way. And we should probably put some little notes or like labels or something so that it's clear like what the common things are. And so there are just buttons on here that I can press to do that. There's also a start of class checklist for this. Basically, all I have to do, I log onto the computer, turn on my projector, join Collaborate, double check the mic. I'll talk about that later, but you always want to double check to make sure I'm using the mic and that people can hear me. And then I just share the tablet display. Hit record, and that's it. So that's my start of class. I go through this process, and then I don't really have to worry about technology. From that point on, anytime I want people to see something, I put it on the screen, and they can see it. So that's the basic setup. What could go wrong? Well, basically two things, audio and two screen problems. So the audio thing, if you have the wrong mic input, you got to go and change that. So I always check this at the start of every class. I recommend everybody does that. Don't just assume it works from before. I can go into more details on that, but I highly recommend people do that. And then wrong room output. This usually doesn't happen, but if things get confused, just make sure that you're using whatever the output for the room is. In this room, it's the Extron Scalar D, whatever. But whatever it is for the room, if you can't hear people over the room out speakers, ask IT to help you with this, is what I would say. The other thing is, what if it gets confused between the screens? So in PowerPoint, sometimes it'll want to present on the other screen. Again, we should be able to get this set up so you don't have to worry about this. I'm just mentioning it. In PowerPoint, up at the slideshow thing, you can go to choose the monitor, and right now I have it set up as my primary is this other thing, and then this monitor too is the combined between the Canvas, which is the tablet, and the Extron, which is the projector. So just make sure that you're always projecting to this thing, so that when you start your slide presentation, it goes over here. And what if the tablet gets confused? Again, we should set it so that it doesn't happen, but there's a little button in the taskbar. You go in and you just make sure that the working area is chosen on the thing that is the tablet. So that's the amount of troubleshooting that people might need to do, and hopefully we can reduce that some even. All right, so with that, we're able to get on to Kudzai's question, how do I do this fancy stuff, right? So the cool stuff here, I do using OBS Studio. OBS Studio is a free and open source industry standard actually for live streaming. So I got into this because you saw I had that music stuff. I used to live stream music on YouTube. Once I did it every day for a month just to as I record or write music, I would just live stream what I'm doing on Twitch is what I was doing, but I've live streamed on YouTube. It's fun stuff. I've made a total of $0 from that to date. But it was a fun hobby until I spent all of my day in my basement live streaming myself to people. So I haven't actually done music live streaming since then. But I knew how to use this stuff, so I went ahead and used the skills that I already had. Maybe someday I'll get back into this. I still play music, just by myself. And why would you want to use this? Well, you can see my beautiful face, or we can hide it, right? Like it's what's giving me the ability to do this sort of thing. It lets me easily set up recordings. So whatever I'm doing here, I can actually just press a button, and you can even see it over here, start recording, and you can record local copies of this. So even if you're not in the class and you're just like, somebody asks a homework question, so many times this has happened to me. I get a homework question where I'm like, it would be so easy to just tell them, but writing this out with all the equations and everything is gonna be hard. So much easier to just pop on my, turn on OBS, hit record, use Whiteboard, just sketch out the equations to answer the thing, and then upload that video, and then I can actually share it with the whole class through Blackboard as well if I think other people might benefit. So that's been really nice. And doing scene transitions, so all this stuff where I'm like transitioning between like, hey, what's up folks? Let's do some work. That sort of stuff I'm doing through OBS, and I think it's useful because sometimes you really have to have a heart-to-heart with your class. They got to know. They got to know. You can set this up to zoom in more too, right? But that's why. And then how? Well, in practice, this isn't that much harder. Again, setting all this stuff up took some doing. The idea is any faculty wouldn't be messing around with this stuff. They would just start OBS, start their virtual camera using this button over here, and then share their virtual camera. Now, my actual setup's a little more complicated that I'll talk about next, but that's the basic idea. And then the virtual camera will just show whatever's there. So you can also use this in Teams. If you have OBS set up now, you can do Teams and do fancy whatever you want in there. I think I even set up some, just to show OBS can do, we can be dramatic, right? We can do, if you want to be kind of a weird ghost in the corner, you can do lots of crazy things, all right? So that's OBS. The caveats, here I put this in probably 2 small stuff. Remote in person, using this setup with the virtual camera, see different things. Obviously, you are all seeing the same thing. So my Nix setup fixes this problem. And then the other problem is you can't share desktop audio and collaborate with virtual camera. That's a limitation of Collaborate. So if you're doing videos, now you have to stop and share something that lets you share audio. So that's why I moved to this next one. So number 2, I don't really recommend. I just did it as sort of this is an intermediate. This is if you want to go and you feel up for doing this. Now everybody can see the same thing on every screen. So if I want to know what people are seeing, I can just look at the projector, right? I can also look over here, but I know everybody is seeing whatever's there. It lets me do the scene transitions. And then how do you do this? Well, instead of doing the virtual web camera, you have to do a right-click thing. So I want to get this set up to be smoother, but you right-click, full screen projector, and then choose your projector. So this means you have to have 3 screens. So now, instead of just duplicating, I've got one screen. So here, let's go to here. I've got one screen over here. I've got a second screen on the tablet. And then my OBS screen is what's being projected up there. So that's the current setup. Now, the problem is that, yeah, and then you just share that projector display. It lets you share the system audio so you can do the video seamlessly. That's how I've been doing this whole thing. Problems, depending on where you're at, this might be too much cognitive load. And the 3 screens can get confusing for some people. So this is why I'm not recommending this as like the general purpose setup, but you can see it's really cool the stuff I can do here. So anybody who's into this, I'm happy to help and try and make sure more people can do this. But the one setup that I would do, that I recommend, is number 1. So everybody, I think, could do number 1 and could greatly benefit from it. Just showing whatever's on the tablet is on the projector. Hopefully my zooming around here has shown why this is useful. For example, I can now just hop over and be like, all right, we're on a 5-minute break. Right? So you're in a long class, you need a break. Remote students might not see that maybe they were in the bathroom. You don't know, right? Even students in the class might not know, right? So now you just throw up the break thing. And I've got it set up to be a 5-minute break, whatever. Once we're done, we come back. So that's handy. Now, you might notice I'm zooming around pretty quick between this. I'm using a Stream Deck to do this. So this is really handy, and this is why I can do this. If I had to go to OBS for all of these scene transitions, I wouldn't be doing this. And I'll show you why. Here's OBS. So ignore the picture within picture. So I would have to go and click on all of these things, right? So maybe I can zoom in. Is it going to zoom in for me? Zoom in. There we go. So you can see I would have to go and click on these things to change scenes. And I don't want to have to click around while I'm doing the class, right? So what I do instead is I have all of whatever I want to change mapped over to the Stream Deck. And the Stream Deck, here, maybe I can even go here. So this is just a different camera. You don't need this many cameras. I'm mostly doing this so I can show things. Motion sickness warning. So the Stream Deck is this little buddy here. And here's how I have it set up. So you can see it's that stuff. Let's actually just switch back. So because I think I went ahead and put on here. Yeah, so there you can see like my set of shortcuts essentially that I have set up. So the shortcuts here are basically, it like looks like a lot here, but the basic idea is that these ones let me change pen colors. And then this is just a little thing to make that easier. And then these ones here we'll do a different color, maybe blue. These, blue's kind of dark, maybe purple, or green. Green will be good. These ones here are essentially the only scene transitions I use, right? So these ones I set up specifically for like this presentation. And these ones don't really do anything. They're just additional stuff. So basically what I have is if I want to change pen colors, I've got it set up so that I've got green, I just press the button that looks red and it's red. I press the button that looks purple. So I don't have to remember hotkeys, I don't have to remember that sort of stuff. You could map these to here or to the buttons on the tablet itself, but they didn't have colors on them. And I was like, I want to see the color. I don't want to think about, okay, this one means this. Because I did that for a while where I like mapped number 1 to be a certain pen color and it was just worse. So this way, I see color, I press color, I get color, right? I'm not thinking about this, I'm thinking about the content and about the students understanding the content. They're not cheap. I bought my own actually as a hobby thing and my wife was like, what? And I was like, hey, it's my discretionary funds. Subsequently, the one I'm using here is one that school has bought to have at school, and it's really nice. So I highly recommend for anybody who's doing OBS stuff, $150 is not a lot for this sort of functionality in a professional context, right? Yeah, for like a hobby, it's a lot, but it's really nice. And so it integrates with OBS. You can change the scenes easily, and then you can also set up your own custom shortcuts with it, which is what I did with these. So this is the PowerPoint specific nonsense. Presenter view gets weird. So changing colors, I had to do this script thing. I'd like this to be better. So anybody who cares about this, normally, here, let me just show you. In PowerPoint, normally you have to like come down here and click on these buttons and be like, I want this blue or green. And then it's like small tap targets and let's go to the eraser and whatever. So rather than having that, I've got the hotkeys set up and I've got this script running on the portable auto hotkey installation. So IT folks, anybody who cares, let me know. The idea is people shouldn't have to worry about this. We should just get this set up so people can just press the button on the Stream Deck and it changes the things for them. I spent, I don't know, like 25 hours trying to fix some stuff here because of, oh man, I could go into it. Anyway, but I've got it working, so it should be duplicable. All right, and then now the start of class checklist is kind of like before. For the number 2 one, the only difference, it's all the same except for you start OBS Studio and share your virtual camera instead. And for number 3, it's all the same except for you start your OBS Studio, do that right-click thing, and then share that projector display. So this is really the only additional complication for doing number 3 as far as getting it set up. So my start of class procedure is not like some crazy complicated thing. All right, I know this is too much information. I've just put this here as like summing things up. Here's the hardware stuff. Obviously for this presentation I've used like 3 webcams, but in general you just need 1 for your classroom. You can move it around as you need. 2 is nice. These are Logitech 930Es. We maybe could find better ones. There are some issues with the settings resetting, but in practice that doesn't really affect things. It's just like low light compensation I would prefer to always be off, but when you restart the computer it resets because Logitech doesn't save to, so I can go into details on that. But the microphone is fine. It's an AT2020 USB Plus. It's a large diaphragm condenser mic. I use it so I can not have to be near the mic and I can just be talking here and you can see like I'm just talking, you can hear me fine. Hopefully the audio quality is okay remotely. It is going to be compressed somewhat by Collaborate, but I can't do anything about that, right? That's just, it's all, but it's going to be better than your average mic. Yeah, audio quality is great remotely, right? And I can move around some and you can still hear me. Now it'll be a little bit different. So when I'm over here, if I look back this way, you can hear me. When I talk over here, you'll see the audio quality for the remote people will drift a little bit, right? But you should still be able to hear me. So that way I don't have to be right by the mic and I don't have to wear a mic headset thing or whatever. And that means if students, depending on how loud the students are, they might be able to just talk and people remotely might be able to hear them. Now if they're in the far corner of the room, it's still good practice to repeat questions, just even if fully in-person classes. You want to, like, you get the question, you repeat it so that you know that we're on the same page as to what we're answering. And now I know I speak loud enough, people will hear it, it's fine. If I see things in chat like, oh, Kudzai says, thanks, Malin. Malin says, yes, it's still fine. Like, I can just read that out real quick so that everybody here can hear that. Yeah, repeat, like, but anyway, that's that set up. One thing, it came with a stand that was on the desk. I just grabbed a different mic stand so that it's off the desk so that my clicks and banging into the desk, you can still hear this. But if this were on the desk, it would be like thumping, right? You get all that bass. So just having the mic off any surface that people are touching really helps. You can also do shock mounts, whatever, but that's whatever. All right, and then the tablet was $600, Stream Deck 150, so this is like $1,000 to set up the room like this. This is not counting tripods. You don't necessarily need them. You can just put them on screens, whatever. Tripods are not expensive. It's also not counting the projector, but you need a projector for your room. So that's that. And then for IT folks, here's installation info, so I can share this with anybody. All right. Student skills, I can go and show some of this stuff about how I do this in Blackboard, but I kind of want to mention these things and give you a chance to ask questions. So I can go back and do that later. But IT could help me fix this one possibly. I haven't had time to delve into it because it works well enough. So maybe a backscript to help with monitor problems. Collaborate should be more like Zoom, the recorded stuff. Anyway, so that's a thing, but it works well enough. One thing, it doesn't have auto captioning. If you want auto captioning, I recommend that you use this in PowerPoint because this way, sometimes I speak kind of quickly, and when I speak quickly, it can be tough for people to understand me if they're second language, etc. Whereas this tends to pick me up pretty well because I do tend to speak kind of precisely. There, it kind of missed something, right? So, but it's better than nothing, right? I wish this were kind of built in to the platform to collaborate, and it looks like there's an option for it, but I guess maybe we don't have it. I don't know. So that should be a thing where students can choose to turn that on themselves. Microphones, IT, we should disable the other microphones so that it doesn't switch over to them. I can talk to people about that. Ergonomics, right now, or maybe we'll do this. Here we go. So ergonomics, this is down here. And so I'm sitting on this, and it's fine, but I want the cans to like do standing desk stuff and have this go up. And so I just need to look into how to set that up. And also, along with that, currently, my second screen's over here. It would be better if we're just like back here, so that it's still out of the way. It's not in between me and students. So these are like my to-do list, but it works well enough that I'm like not rocking the boat while I'm teaching classes. So, it might be worth trying out other microphone setups, but this works well enough. And then the last thing, call to action, it'd be cool to try out alternative professors. So it's not just, well, this works well for Jakob Spjut. Here, we'll go back here. This works well for Jakob Spjut, but does it work for anyone else? Is this something that other people could actually use? Is this worth investing in, or is this just something that we do to keep Jakob happy, right? So anybody interested in this, I don't have something set up to like, email me, I guess. I don't know. Whoever's doing Flex stuff at the system level, anybody who's interested, loop me in. I think this is cool stuff. So, and I'm not pretending like I have all the answers. Like maybe there's better things that I haven't even thought of, and we can get the best thing to more widely roll out. But the thing that I want to emphasize is that as far as this impacts students, my students have loved the class recordings. Even people who say like, oh, I'm so glad you're doing this in person because I can't learn at home. That student specifically mentioned those class recordings are great. So he's here in person every week because he needs to be here to learn stuff. But then when he's going back through his notes, he can look at the recording and match it up and be like, all right, I didn't quite get that. They go back, they follow it. So he's not like rewatching the whole thing, but he's getting what he needs to out of it. It's great, especially for like CAD stuff, but it's good for physics. That specific student's a physics student. And I think it gives us a lot of flexibility to have students learn in the way that's best for them while still allowing students to meet the demands of their lives. So thanks to everyone for your attention, to IT for helping set this up. And I know I've made a lot of demands for them. They were heroic in coming through with stuff. And then for Center for Teaching for setting this up. So any questions? I know that was more info than maybe I should have had, and I still have like additional slides, but any questions at this point? Yes, please, Joe.
So when you're teaching in a class, if you are a faculty member that likes to walk around,
Yeah.
is there a device, and I've seen this, I believe, in other venues, that allows the camera to follow you?
So the question is, if you like to walk around as a faculty member, is there a device that lets the camera follow you? Yes, and in fact, we have one here at QVCC. You can get that set up. So you see I'm standing up here, and you can't see me because I'm standing up. So like we can go to here, I'm standing up. Now you can see me here, right? We have that in other things so that it'll automatically follow you. In fact, you could integrate that with OBS if you wanted to have this other flexibility and have that integrated. It just, whatever video source would need to go into the computer first instead of going directly from something else, right? But a lot of those do. So yes, professors who want to walk around can do that and have the camera follow them. And in fact, you could look into things where there's a thing called Epic Cam that can share camera stuff to your computer. You can get, I forget what it's called, but it's like network NDI, I don't know, but there's an interface thing where you can have over the Wi-Fi things broadcasting, so you can have like maybe an iPad with a pencil or whatever, and you're doing your notes on that, so you can walk around and be where you'd like to be, and have that be more portable and have it be wireless. So there are lots of options for this. This is just what I managed to get set up.
And follow-up question, is there also an audio device that will orient to the source of the sound? So if someone in the classroom is speaking, the device will hone in on them and pick up their voice.
Yeah, the question is about audio and whether we can have audio that singles out and picks up on people's voices. Maybe other people, if anybody else in the chat has knowledge about that, I'm happy to learn more. Audio can be tricky. The things you run into with audio are that we have speakers in the room so that I can hear what's going on, Right, yeah, you can't hear Joe because he's in the far corner of the room. The speakers will cause feedback depending on where they're positioned with respect to your mic sources. If you have, so like, I would defer to audio professionals who are used to miking rooms to see, like, if we want to mic this room for a specific purpose, how do we do that, right?
I've
The
seen
you
mics that are hanging, you know, from the ceiling.
Yeah, so you can do hanging omnidirectional mics around the ceiling in the room, so you can kind of pick that up. You can have multi-mic setups that all go into one thing. Yeah, take care, Eric. There are lots of options for this. You can wear a mic. That is a thing that you can do. And in fact, that is one of the things that I wanted to try. And that way you can walk around, and if you get close enough to somebody else, then things can pick up. If you have an omnidirectional mic pickup, then it can pick up other people's voices, not just your own. I don't like all of the rustling of lavalier mics and the requirements that you need to, like, I was having trouble not making lots of additional noises with those. I'm kind of fidgety. So I wanted a mic that I wasn't touching, but there are lots of options, and I'd love to explore them. So if people just want to buy some stuff, and you know, over winter break, I can spend some time looking at things and trying to see like how I'd be happy to look into this more. Microphone setups can get expensive when you go into multi-mic setups. If we have the money to do it, let's do it. I say let's spend the money on making the classroom how it should be, right? Yes, please. And if you have questions remotely, feel free to either just type them or raise your hand in chat, and I can call on you in the Collaborate chat. Yes, Debbie.
So not a question, just some comments. Like, this is obviously the classroom of the future. That, you know, I think the system needs to start looking into this. I'm just thinking about how to institutionalize it. You need a lot of upfront professional development. And then you'd have to have like an ed tech department this is their job. They're available at all times when classes are running to help with technology glitches.
Yes, so
And
what?
I think we can get everybody doing this, you know? The majority of our classes could be this way.
Yeah, could people hear Debbie there? All right, so the idea is that this is the classroom of the future, and in order to do this, we'd have to invest in an ed tech department, some way of having people be available. So if, you know, in the same way that if I start class and my projector's not working, I can call IT, we need to have people qualified to come and fix the setup at whatever point, right? So that we can make sure that things, like, we can do that, as well as upfront professional development for the faculty involved so that we can feel confident and capable in doing this stuff. But yeah, I completely agree. And like doing office hours, like I don't do office hours unless I'm, so I have office hours, I'll do them in person. So I have hybrid office hours as well, where I have a bookings thing set up where students can just go on and book a time, and they can specify in person or remote. And either way, I'm in the same place, so that if we're doing remote, I have the tablet, I can work through the things. Like all of my grading, I have students scan stuff in and I grade it, and I can just mark on up on it through Blackboard. Blackboard tools aren't great, but they work well enough. So I grade exams that way. I grade lots of things that way. So I prepare all my lectures with this. So like having this and being able to use this is really useful. And it's a huge difference having the screen underneath it, so you can see the screen as what you're doing, as opposed to the older graphics tablets that didn't have the screen incorporated. Any other questions?
One quick one.
Yes, Phil.
When you were showing us how you can optionally on one of the monitors share the Collaborate screen so you can see what other people are seeing, but then for the chat, you can't have the chat on that screen simultaneously. You have to wait to hear the tone, and then you've got to switch over to the chat window?
No. So what I have set up is I'll put this here so everyone can see. Put it on the wrong spot. Oh, no, this is right. So this is Collaborate. So this whole thing here, the reason why, let's get me out of the way. So this is what I see in Collaborate. It looks like a little hall of mirrors here because it's showing what I'm showing in Collaborate, right? But the idea is that we can see the whole chat there. So like I can see the whole chat. If I need to see things bigger, I can control plus to zoom in on this so you can see, like, I can read whatever's going on here. I can check with students. I haven't talked about a lot of the things I do just because there wasn't time, but there's like polling that I do to ask questions and get engagement stuff with remote and in person at the same time. There's the whiteboard thing I didn't mention, but students can collaborate on that too. You can invite students to that, and as I'm drawing stuff, students can, as if they were coming up to a whiteboard, they can remotely kind of either type in or kind of sketch in with their mouse or whatever stuff on there as well. Obviously, if they have a tablet, they can do great, cool stuff, right? So this is what I see. So anytime somebody raises their hand or whatever, here, somebody raise your hand, and you'll be able to see what happens. Yeah, so you see, I see the names of Malin, raise the hand, 2 more. So I wish it would just show it here. I have to go over here to see whose hand is raised. So that's one thing that I do have to click. That's a collaborate issue. But I can see, and I can call on people and be like, Barbara, yes. And then people can speak out loud and not interrupt me in that. So as far as managing this, that's fine. And similarly for like discussion groups, if you set up discussion groups ahead of time in your Blackboard, then rather than having to spend time putting things into that, you can just pop over here and be like, breakout groups, you can either do randomly assign, or you can do the group set and choose. In this, I believe I have a final project group set with the students in their final project teams. So I can just put them into final project teams, they can collaborate that way. Things can work better or worse depending on how things are going for that. Like if you have too many people in, anyway, that'll go down a rabbit hole. But hopefully that clarifies Phil's question. So Phil's question, sorry if I didn't repeat it, Phil's question was about how do I see what's going on in Collaborate stuff?
Could you send us a copy of your PowerPoint?
I can, maybe. I'll send it to Kudzai.
I'm going to try and say this.
You can also just come up here and speak to everybody. Like, we're going to get feedback. Right.
So I'm hoping the folks online can hear me. Jacob has recorded this whole session and will be making that link and recording available shortly, or I'm not sure how long it takes, but as soon as he shares it with me, I will definitely pass it on to everyone in the college. Just because we're getting near to 12:30 and I see a couple of people are leaving already, I don't want to stop the questions because certainly this is a very rich and dense presentation Jacob has done, and I just want to thank him on behalf of Center for Teaching. It's always a very interesting experience watching Jacob teach, because it certainly makes me feel like a Bronze Age farmer who has stepped into an episode of Star Trek. But certainly, you know, math being somewhat adjacent to the physics and engineering classes, I very much appreciate how dense and complex. I think some folks who were here earlier saw some of the slides and the amount of information Jacob has to communicate, and this is certainly, I think, very impressive in terms of it is a solution that works for Jacob. Just in the conversations we've been having over the past month with folks dropping by to check-ins and the study groups, it's certainly clear that what works for Jacob in engineering is not necessarily what works for Cindy Shershak in early childhood education, is not necessarily what works for any one of us teaching a math 085 or 095 course, where really the students need a lot more in-person reassurance. I mean, you know, some classes are 90% counseling and 10% content, but Center for Teaching is very much about encouraging instructors who are under a tremendous amount of pressure lately to try solutions that work really specifically for them in their fields, and to continue to grow and explore those solutions. I think this was a fantastic demonstration of that. So once again, I'll let Jacob continue with the Q&A, but thank you, Jacob. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And I did actually make up a little funny end credits thing.
Anyone who believes Jacob is the worst, we'll be having a meeting about that later.
All right. So anyway, yeah. If there are any additional questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yes, Kudzai. People have been saying thanks in chat. Whatever, it's fine.
So when you're teaching, it's because this is my experience with Collaborate, you're not necessarily interested in seeing online students' faces as much as just knowing when they have a question, when they've raised their hand.
That's correct. So the question is about when I'm teaching in Collaborate, I'm not so interested in seeing students' faces. I just want to know when they have a question, when they raise their hand. That's correct. That's how I approach this. So for doing presentations remotely, I do make, no problem, Andy. I do make students presenters so that they can share their screen and they can do whatever they'd like. So people can present remotely like that. And then what I do is I just drag this over here so that, people can see what people are presenting. And there's a way of doing that where it's like people in the class can see it without it duplicating stuff. So yeah, Stream Decks are super sweet. Anyway, I don't know if that sort of answers the question, but you can have students share their classes, and for more discussion-based stuff, sometimes I do, but the problem is I don't like having cameras on always, because there's a difference between when you're, like, when you're in a classroom, people could look at you anytime, but you're aware when people are looking at you because you can tell somebody's looking at you. Whereas cameras remotely, people could be looking at you anytime, but you don't know when people are looking at you. And it's so just from a personal comfort standpoint, it's nice to be able to turn it on when I want people to see me and then turn it back off after. When I do student introductions, I generally, at the beginning, will have students encourage them to turn on their camera if they feel comfortable so that I can get a mental picture. But it's, I try not to force anybody to do things out of their comfort zone unless it is really needed by class course objectives, right?
It's very much a personal, it's situational, and it's very much a personal preference thing. And the setup you have makes sense because, again, with the students you're teaching, you're not doing what's happening in a Math 095 course where we're sometimes monitoring, hey, come on, you have to pay attention. You're delivering the information in multiple channels, and it's up to the students to catch, one or two of them to, get the work done. So that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, and I would say that, anyway, that's that. So I encourage people to use their mics because for me it helps, but again, some people are in noisy backgrounds, whatever. Sometimes I have required that people show screens for when we're doing like projects, right? Because they're demonstrating how a projectile launcher works. I need to see it working. So they got to show that, right? But most of the time, and by and large, I don't have to. Other question? All right, so I will share this. I've got like other things about considerations for cameras and for programming interfaces and stuff. Oh, Jess, Jess.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question about a conversational classroom. In my art history courses, there's a lot of open conversation and debate. And just to clarify from what you said earlier, it's just depending on how the room is mic'd, and that's very possible?
That's correct. So everybody in the room right now can hear you. The only thing is just because I haven't been forced to by my courses, I don't have a setup where it's easy for people to, from wherever they're sitting in the room, to be heard. A multi-mic setup is probably what you would want for that. Yeah, there was too much echo on that. Yeah, so we can, again, like that would take some finagling. So if you want conversation stuff, basically it's the audio stuff that we need to fix. Like there are some easy things and then there's some hard things, but yeah.
Also, is there an option for a remote student to join, you know, if I split the room up into work groups, is there an option for a remote student to join one work group?
Yes. Yeah, you can set the work groups up however you'd like within Collaborate. So you can't see who's speaking. Could you hear that was?
I can hear the echo as well. I hear my own voice echoing.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, here, somebody try speaking again. See if you can hear echo now.
No, I'm on my laptop. I still hear my voice echoing.
All right, so it's curious why that would. I'm going to try one thing real quick just to see. So we're going to stop and share this differently. Well, I did turn off my mic, so that's the confusion as to why it was still echoing. My mic was off. So here, try again, Jess.
Am I still echoing? I don't hear my voice echoing any longer.
Yeah, so I guess the problem was, so this is a Collaborate issue. Since I was sharing the desktop audio, most things, for example, Zoom, sorry to harp on Zoom, but it's actually better. When you share your desktop audio or whatever, it doesn't share the audio coming out of Zoom, because why would people want to hear the same thing that's coming out of Zoom repeated again, right? What Collaborate, I guess, does, so when I have share desktop audio on, that lets me easily share those videos, which is what I'm doing. But I guess when remote students talk, then it shares back their audio that I'm getting through the desktop audio here back to them for some reason. So I could be wrong about that, but I did just verify that when I wasn't sharing desktop audio, you didn't get echo. So that's the issue.
Jess, I just want to share the following. This very specific, thank you for asking the question about your more discussion-based class, which again speaks to the fact that not all solutions are for every situation. The audio and the feedback issue is something that a couple of people here actually witnessed. You know, I was struggling with during one of the CFT things, and I think for anyone who's interested in, you know, none of us wants to try this stuff out for the first time in front of students for good and professional reasons. But if you're feeling like, I really want to take a trial run at this, even if it's, you know, 3 or 4 iterations of trying it out, please use CFT as a resource. We have people willing to come and play the role of student, whether that's in person, online, or both, so that you can slowly figure out, okay, Collaborate's not really working for me in this context. Maybe what Jacob shared about Zoom is working. WebEx works really well for some of us who need to look at students' faces while we're teaching. But please reach out to CFT, and we can set up a private time to just have, you know, 3, 4, 5 people play the role of student and give you feedback as far as is the thing you're trying to achieve, is it actually possible?
Yeah, and
That's
so
really great, guys. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah, and so Sarah was proposing that you can eliminate the feedback with an echo or with the headset. So sort of. So you're proposing that Jess can have a headset and that can help eliminate her echo? Is what you're proposing? Or are you proposing that I can have a headset? Because the problem with me having a headset is then I can hear things, but nobody else in the class can hear it. So if you want students in the class to hear what people remotely are saying, then that doesn't work unless everybody's on their own laptops with headsets, in which case, like, what are we doing? So, but yes, yeah, so I think definitely having a headset helps eliminate normal echo, and I don't think you should be getting the same sort of echo now. I have one on in all Collaborate meeting and they can hear each other. Yeah, I mean, okay. I don't know if I understand that.
I have office hours in Collaborate, and they can all talk to each other, and I have a headset on, and I don't have any echo.
Right, so that works when you're fully remote, right? But what I was saying is that if I put on a headset, then I can hear, and then we'll never get any feedback through the mic, but then none of the students in the classroom can hear. Right? So you do need some form of that. The easiest way, honestly, is if you have a more directional mic. So this is a cardioid pattern, but you could get like a hypercardioid or like a boom mic with a shotgun microphone pattern that has much better off-axis noise rejection. Then you just point that at people. So if you want to look, there are probably some, to Joe's point earlier about like, can we have something that zooms in on the speaker? Maybe you can get something that just kind of points at whoever's talking, and then will reject the audio coming from the speakers in the room. But this comes into like noise treatments in the room, because you get the audio that's going to reflect off these windows, right? And it's going to come back here. So even if it's out of the direct line of path, you're going to get like, so this is where audio treatment can be tricky to have that work and not get the feedback. One easy way is if Collaborate gave me a way, other things do this, but gave me a way of mapping this to a hotkey, then I could just have a hotkey that I press to turn off the room mic. The problem we were finding is that the echo we were getting was not actually from the room mic. The echo was from the sharing the desktop audio, which is just bad coding on Collaborate's point. So I don't know what to do that if we're using Collaborate, but I'm using it because anyway, yeah. Last questions. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this. Hopefully you found it useful, and I'm going to stop the recording now. Yep. Take care, folks.
Thank you, Jacob.
No problem.
That was amazing.